And no doubt energy bills will be one of the issues that we pick on with the Energy Secretary, Ed Miliband, who, as you can see, is here with us now. Very good morning to you. Thanks so much for coming in. I want to start off, though, talking about the economy, because the Bank of England yesterday halved its growth forecast for this year. For the government, who's made economic growth its #1 mission, that's a hell of a blow, isn't it?
Well, these figures tend to go up and down. It's important that the bank cut interest rates yesterday. We're seeing wages rising faster than they've done for 3 years, real wages. But look, obviously we know we've got more to do, and part of what I'm doing in my job, I was out yesterday with Keir Starmer talking about our plans for new nuclear, is driving economic growth. And you know, this is the great and important thing about clean energy today, our plans for clean energy, is this is the biggest economic opportunity of the 21st century.
But those nuclear plans will take ages to make a difference.
The nuclear plans will take some time, but actually, if you think about what's happening at Hinkley Point C, we're wanting to move forward with plans on Sizewell, on small modular reactors. Those are huge opportunities for Britain, and many of the things we've done since we came to office are precisely about doing the right thing for the climate and the right thing for economic growth.
Well, yes, and despite the gloomy forecast, growth is still the #1 priority for the government. Yesterday, we saw Keir Starmer saying, build, baby, build. We've seen Rachel Reeves backing the expansion of Heathrow Airport. We've also seen environmental planning regulations cut to speed up building as well. Rachel Reeves has also said that planners and developers don't need to worry about newts and bats anymore. Are green commitments being ditched in the name of growth?
No, that's not the way I see it. If you look at Rachel's speech last week, she went out of her way to emphasise the way in which both clean energy, net zero, and growth go together. And look, if you look around the world, so many countries recognise that there are huge economic opportunities here. And that's what I think about for Britain. If you think about offshore wind, where we are the second biggest generator of offshore wind, but we're not yet generating the jobs, our plans, Great British Energy, the National Wealth Fund, giving incentives to invest in British manufacturing are all about getting those good jobs throughout our country. That's just one example of the way in which these two go together.
But what about the green considerations when it comes to Heathrow expansion? You've previously said that you considered resigning from Gordon Brown's cabinet over the issue. You voted against it in 2018. So what's happened? Do you back it now?
Well, look, obviously I abide by collective responsibility, and what the government's done
but you don't agree with it?
No, I do support what the government is doing, which is that we've asked Heathrow to come forward with their plans. But it's really important to say to you, Anna, that these have got to meet strict carbon budgets and local environmental standards. And then an assessment will be made about whether a third runway can do that. And that's an important thing to say to your viewers, which is when we make these decisions these days, we have financial budgets, we have carbon budgets in which any of those plans have to sit.
So I noticed you weren't at that speech of Rachel Reeves. Lots of your cabinet colleagues were. I mean, have you raised issues, have you raised concerns about this within cabinet?
I mean, I'm tempting as it is to give you a running commentary on our cabinet discussions. I'm not going to do that. But look, I've set out the position.
Well, yes, but hand on heart, do you think it's possible to meet our climate targets while expanding Heathrow Airport?
Well, I do actually think that aviation expansion can be consistent with our climate targets. And you know, even the Climate Change Committee projected a 25% increase in passenger numbers by 2050, consistent with the pathway to net zero. So all of these things have to be taken into account within that broader context of our carbon budgets.
And yet, one analysis suggested that we need to plant 2 forests, each the side of Greater London, to offset carbon emissions of airport expansion. I mean, and also, progress on sustainable aviation fuel is very slow. We've also got problems with electric planes. They're at very early stages of development. I mean, do you honestly think that we can meet?
Well, look, I think there's two positions. There's one position that says, look, we should just stop flying. That's not my position. There's another position that says it can just be business as usual, nothing changes. I think neither position is right. What the government's position is we have a proper framework for this, these carbon budgets, and that is what aviation expansion and everything else has got to sit within. OK,
so your colleague, Labour's Sadiq Khan, Mayor of London, says he remains opposed to Heathrow Airport, and some of the criticisms he cites are noise, air pollution and meeting climate targets. So you're saying that he's wrong?
I think what I'm saying is that I'm part of a government that has a collectively agreed position on this, and I believe this can be done, aviation expansion can be done consistent with our carbon budgets.
OK, let's talk about Rosebank then, because Keir Starmer strongly signalled yesterday that the government would be minded to support an application for another licence for Rosebank's oil field. It's blocked by the Scottish courts, of course. You've previously described that plan as climate vandalism, so have you changed your mind on that?
I think what Keir said and what we all agree on, it's really important, and I'll just take a bit of time to explain this, is the Supreme Court made a really important decision last year, which is that we needed to think about and assess oil and gas projects in a different way, taking into account what they call Scope 3 emissions. So that's the effects of burning the oil and gas. And that is the process that my department is consulting on. So there's a really important legal issue here that we've got to abide by for the environmental reasons that we've been talking about. We're in that consultation. Once that is complete, projects will come forward. They may come to my desk, so I'm not going to get into discussion of these individual projects, but that's the process that we're going to go through. And it should kind of reassure people that it will be done in a way that upholds proper environmental standards.
I'm only asking because this is a giant oil field in the North Sea, and Labour's manifesto promises not to issue new exploration licences. So you're perfectly comfortable, though, with it going ahead if it ticks
I'm not
boxes,
getting into
say.
these individual projects. I'm sorry to be difficult about this, but because I'm the Secretary of State and this might come across my desk, all developers who put forward proposals are entitled to have these criteria applied objectively, and that's what we're going to do. OK,
going back to linking to the growth figures, part of the problem that's going on here is energy prices are still on the rise. You say that you're wanting to protect people. You're making an announcement today. Explain what that is.
So that is a proposal to raise the standards of energy efficiency for all private tenants. And the truth is that we have millions of tenants who are living in substandard, drafty, cold accommodation. We have a view. We believe that if you pay your rent, you have deserved to live in a warm home, and this is a way of lowering bills. So we are going to be asking landlords to do what half of landlords are already doing, which is to raise their standards to decent standards. We think it's the right thing to... And it shows, just to make this point, it shows the way in which we can both do the right thing for climate, but also make working people better off today.
You say better off, and yet it's going to cost landlords to upgrade their properties, isn't it? I think there's an estimate that's put over...
Around £6,000.
Exactly. I mean, that's just going to get passed on to tenants, isn't it?
Well, that isn't the evidence previously when standards have been raised. So standards were raised a few years ago. That isn't what happened. We've got the renters' organisations that are backing these proposals. I think they know what really matters to renters. Fuel poverty organisations that back them too. There is going to be help available for landlords as well to help to make these changes. It's the right thing to do for the country. I think people have a right to live in decent homes. A
couple more questions, just to keep you a little bit longer. The Parliamentary Public Accounts Committee has questioned your £22 billion investment in carbon capture technology. They say it's unproven. They've questioned whether it's affordable for taxpayers and consumers. Are taxpayers paying over the odds for this kind of investment?
No, I don't think so. Look, the reality is that we've been talking a lot about how do we meet our climate targets. There is no world in which we meet our climate targets without carbon capture and storage working at scale. Our independent advisors of the Climate Change Committee say that. International organisations say it too. We think this is the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do for jobs as well. This is where Britain has really got a head start. These projects will create thousands of jobs. We could create up to 50,000 jobs in carbon capture and storage. This is about the future. This is about our energy future. It can work. We believe it will work. OK, and a quick question about Grenfell Tower.
Yes. We understand that more details will emerge later, but give us an idea of what the plan is for the tower.
Well, I'm not going to anticipate the announcements that Angela Rayner is going to make, the update that she's going to give today. Look, I've met many of the Grenfell survivors, many of the people who lived in the tower. This is obviously was the most appalling episode in our country's history. I think it's so important that the memory of those who died is properly upheld. I know that Angela will ensure that we do that. So, if I may, I will leave it to her to announce the plans later today.
OK, well, Ed Miliband, we appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Answering questions on a lot of different subjects.
Thanks
very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.